The moment I opened my eyes, my husband slid a divorce agreement across the table. Today was our 7th wedding anniversary. He wore a tie I'd never seen before. His voice was cold. She's pregnant. We should divorce. Name your terms. I stared at the document. The paper's edge looked sharp. In my last life, this was the very couch where I stabbed him. After that, we tore each other apart for 10 years. He destroyed the child I carried. I didn't survive either. When I opened my eyes again, time had reset to this moment. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at him calmly. Chad, my 7 years, and a lifetime. How do you plan to repay me? Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes, Chad was pushing a stack of papers toward me. The room was quiet, the low hum of the air conditioner filling the space. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a faint shadow across his profile. He wore a tie I'd never seen before, navy, with a subtle pattern woven into it. Anna, he said, his voice smooth and cold, like stone pulled from ice water. She's pregnant. She needs a proper name. Let's get divorced. He paused, then added, you can set the terms. I looked down at the divorce agreement in his hand. The edges were so clean they might have been cut by a blade. Then I lifted my gaze to meet his eyes, beautiful, but utterly devoid of warmth. The digital calendar on the wall showed the date, December 18th. Our wedding anniversary. Last night, his phone had been off the entire time. I'd waited at the dining table, a full spread of food gone cold, until 3 in the morning. Now he was back. Back with a divorce agreement. I almost laughed. I'd seen this scene before. No, more than seen it. I'd lived it. In my last life, right here in this living room, in front of this couch, I'd lost my mind and grabbed the fruit knife off the coffee table, driving it straight into his chest. The blood was warm. When it splashed onto my face, it still carried his body heat. I clutched his collar, my voice rasping like a broken bellows. Is she your true love? Then what were my 7 years, Chad? Tell me, what was I to you? He didn't answer. He just looked at me, shock and pain flickering in his eyes before everything went still and empty. That stab didn't kill him. But it severed whatever remained between us. We never ended up divorcing. I tore the agreement to pieces, white fragments scattering across the floor like snow. After that came 10 years of tearing each other apart. He protected the woman named Ivy, and I retaliated like I'd lost my mind. In the end, I had someone drag the pregnant Ivy into an operating room. That night, when he came home, he kicked me hard in the stomach, already beginning to show. The baby was gone. And I never made it off the operating table. Before I lost consciousness, I saw him standing at the doorway of the hospital room, his figure blurred like it was behind frosted glass. Then came endless darkness, and the suffocating sensation of falling with no end. When I opened my eyes again, time had rewound to this exact moment. Anna. Chad's voice pulled me back from the haze. He frowned slightly, clearly confused by my silence. Of course he was. Under normal circumstances, I would have already been screaming, hurling the papers at his face, or, like in my last life, grabbing the nearest ashtray. I lowered my gaze to my hands, trembling faintly in my lap. My nails were neatly trimmed, unscarred by the anxious biting that would come later. My skin was smooth, and around my wrist was the bracelet he'd given me 3 years ago, a thin silver chain with a tiny crescent moon charm. Back then, he'd said, Anna, you're like the moon. Cool, distant, but gentle. Now he was ready to pluck his moon from the sky and replace it with a star. How old is she? I heard myself ask. My voice was so steady it surprised even me. Chad froze for a beat. 22, he said, then added quickly, but she's mature. Not the kind you're imagining. What kind am I imagining? I cut in, finally lifting my eyes to meet his. Young, pretty, the kind that makes you feel alive again? Chad, I was 22 when I married you. I was pretty mature too. His Adam's apple bobbed. He said nothing. I reached for the agreement. The paper made a faint, brittle sound in my hands as I flipped through it, line by line, clause by clause, division of assets, property arrangements, spousal support. He was being generous. Almost too generous. It looked like he was laying out most of what he had, just to buy a clean, decisive yes. I need time to think. I set the document back on the coffee table, gently. Anna, a trace of impatience crept into his voice, dragging this out won't help anyone. The sooner you sign, the better for all of us. Better for who? I asked. You? Her? Or me? He didn't answer. I pushed myself to my feet. My legs were a little numb, and I had to steady myself against the back of the couch. Give me 3 days. I'll have an answer for you then. What are you playing at now? He stood too, a full head taller than me, his presence pressing in. I laughed. I genuinely wanted to laugh. Chad, I said, in 7 years, the first time you stayed out all night, you were with another woman. The first time you forgot our anniversary, it was because you had to take responsibility for her. And now you're handing me divorce papers and asking what I'm playing at. I picked up my coat from the couch and headed for the entryway. Where are you going? He asked from behind me. Out for some air. I didn't turn back. Don't worry. I'm not going to do anything dramatic. I'm past the point of ruining myself over you. The door closed softly behind me. The hallway lights flicked on automatically, casting a harsh, sterile glow. I leaned against the cold wall and slowly slid down until I was sitting on the floor. My hands were still shaking. Not from anger. Not from grief. It was the overwhelming exhaustion of someone who had survived a catastrophe. I had been given another chance. I was back at 28, back at the starting point, before everything had completely fallen apart. The hysterical screaming, the blood-streaked blade, the blinding surgical lights, all of it still belonged to a future that hadn't happened yet. I lifted a hand and covered my face. No tears came. My eyes felt painfully dry. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. Emily's name flashed across the screen. Anna. Emily's voice was as energetic as ever. Happy anniversary. What big surprise did Mr. Carter plan for you? Come on, tell me. I opened my mouth, but my throat tightened. Emily, I said, my voice rough, come have a drink with me. Chapter 2. By the time Emily arrived at the bar, I had already finished my first glass. Jesus, what happened to you? She tossed her bag onto the bar stool beside her and stared at me, eyes wide. Drinking alone on your anniversary? Where's Chad? With his true love, I said, taking another swallow. The whiskey burned all the way down. It took Emily about 5 minutes to piece everything together from my halting explanation. Then she exploded. Divorce? Is he out of his damn mind? 7 years, Anna. You stuck by him when he had nothing, helped him build everything from the ground up, and now that his company's successful, he dumps you for some younger girl? And she's pregnant? What the hell? Her voice was so loud a few nearby tables turned to look. Keep it down, I said, pulling her to sit. Keep it down my ass. Emily's eyes were red now, whether from anger or from hurting for me, I couldn't tell. You can't sign. Why should you? If you sign, you're just handing him, and that woman, exactly what they want. Drag it out. Make it hell for them. I swirled the ice in my glass, watching the cubes collide and slowly melt. Emily, I said quietly, I had a miscarriage last month. She froze. What did you just say? 8 weeks. Barely even formed yet. I forced a faint smile. I didn't tell you. It felt humiliating. Chad didn't know either. He was on a business trip at the time, busy with a new project. I called him, and he said, Anna, I'm in the middle of something. I'll call you back later. And then? And then nothing. I tipped my head back and finished the last of my drink. I went to the hospital by myself. Signed the paperwork myself. When I got home, he still wasn't back. I texted him to say the baby was gone. He replied at 3 in the morning. Just 3 words, got it. Emily gripped my hand so tightly her nails dug into my skin. I swear to God. Her voice trembled. I'm going to find him right now. Don't. I pressed her hand down. Emily, when I sat at home earlier, looking at his face, there was only one thought in my head. I must have owed him something in a past life to be paying it back like this now. You didn't owe him anything. Tears slid down her face. He owes you 7 years of your life, a child, an explanation, he owes you all of that. I shook my head. No. I finally understand. In a relationship, no one really owes anyone anything. It's just a matter of who stops caring first. He stopped caring. That's why nothing I could give ever mattered to him anymore. I wiped my face and realized it was wet. Emily, I'm tired. I don't want to go through this again. Go through what again? I couldn't explain. I just shook my head. I'll sign in 3 days, I said. But not on his terms. I want what's mine. Every last bit of it. Emily stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Anna, you've changed, she murmured. Is that so? I gave a bitter smile. Maybe it's because I've already died once. She didn't understand, but she didn't press. She just pulled me into a tight hug. No matter what you decide, I'm with you, she said. But remember this, it's not that you weren't good enough. He's the one who's blind. I drank a lot that night, but I never got drunk. If anything, my mind grew sharper, clearer, like glass soaked in cold water. By the time I got home, it was 1 in the morning. Chad was still awake, sitting on the living room couch with the floor lamp on. The warm light softened the hard lines of his face, and for a fleeting moment I almost felt like I'd gone back years, when he used to wait up for me like this, no matter how late I came home. Done talking? He asked, his voice unreadable. I nodded, kicking off my heels and stepping onto the floor barefoot. The chill crept up from the soles of my feet. Did Emily convince you to make a scene again? I paused, then turned to look at him. Chad, I said, in your eyes, is every emotion I show just making a scene? He frowned. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I walked over and sat in the armchair across from him, curling my legs up. What reaction were you expecting? That I'd sign gratefully and wish you two a lifetime of happiness? He was silent for a moment. Ivy, she's different from you. His voice dropped. She's insecure. The pregnancies made her emotionally unstable. The doctor said she needs rest. No stress. So I'm supposed to be the understanding one? The considerate one? Quietly step aside? I let out a small laugh. Chad, when I married you at 22, I was pregnant too. Do you remember? His body stiffened. That one was an accident. We didn't keep it. I continued, my tone calm, as if I were talking about someone else. Your first startup had just failed. You were buried in debt. I worked during the day, took freelance jobs at night, slept 4 hours if I was lucky. The day I miscarried, I was working late at the office. The pain was so bad I couldn't stand. A coworker had to take me to the hospital. Stop. He cut me off, his voice tight. Why? You don't want to hear it? I held his gaze. You may have forgotten, but I haven't. I remember the doctor asking where my family was. I said my husband was busy. I'll never forget the look the nurse gave me. The living room fell into a suffocating silence. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. Tick. 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 Now your Ivy is pregnant. She needs rest. She needs security. My voice softened. What about me? Chad, my 7 years, the child I never got to meet, who's going to answer for that? He lowered his head, fingers threading into his hair. I knew that gesture too well. Whenever he felt frustrated, powerless, and unwilling to face things, he did that. After a long while, he spoke, his voice hoarse. Anna, I'm sorry. 3 words. Light as air, heavy as stone. I waited, expecting more. Something like, but I love her. Or, we can't go back. Or even, please let me go. But nothing came. He only repeated, I'm sorry. Then he stood and walked toward the bedroom. At the doorway, he stopped, not turning around. Take another look at the agreement. If you're not satisfied, we can revise it. As long as it's reasonable, I'll agree. He paused. 3 days. I'll wait for your decision. The bedroom door closed softly behind him. I sat there without moving. The night outside was dense and heavy, the glass reflecting a blurred version of me that looked like a pale ghost. My phone screen lit up. A text message from an unfamiliar number. Hello, Ms. Miller. This is Ivy Reed. I know it's inappropriate to reach out like this, but there are things I feel I need to say. Chad and I truly love each other. The baby was unexpected, but I want to keep it. Please don't make things difficult for Chad. Being caught in the middle is painful for him too. You're still young and you have so much going for you, you'll find someone better after you leave him. But I only have him. I finished reading and let out a small laugh. Then I replied, Ms. Reed, what happens between Chad and me is between us. Focus on your pregnancy and try not to stress. And one more thing, I suggest you don't contact me from this number again. I have a habit of recording everything. Send. Block. All in one smooth motion. After that, I stood and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city lights glittered below like an inverted sky full of stars. The apartment Chad and I shared was on the 28th floor. When we bought it 7 years ago, he'd said, "Anna, this is our home now." Home. I looked around the place I'd decorated myself, the place I once believed I would live in for the rest of my life. The beige couch, we'd spent 3 weekends visiting furniture stores before choosing it. The oil painting on the wall, we bought it on our honeymoon in Paris, from a tiny shop in Montmartre. On the bookshelf was a photo of us by a lakeshore on a trip years ago, his arm around my shoulders, my eyes crinkled into crescents as I smiled. Every object carried a memory. Heavy, suffocating. I walked over to the bookshelf and took down the frame. In the photo, I was 26. No fine lines at the corners of my eyes yet, my gaze full of unguarded love as I looked at the camera. Chad was turned slightly toward me, a faint smile at his lips. Back then, he must have loved me. At least, I believed he did. I opened the back of the frame, took out the photo, and slowly, carefully tore it in half. The sound of paper ripping was sharp in the stillness of the night. He and I split down the middle. Half for me. Half for him. I slipped my half into the hidden pocket of my wallet. His half I tore into smaller pieces and dropped into the trash. Then I took out my phone and texted Emily. "Emily, help me find a good divorce lawyer. The best you know." 3 seconds later, she replied. "Already did. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Law office." Chapter 3. The next morning, I woke up in the guest bedroom. For the first time in 7 years, Chad and I had slept in separate rooms. The bed was big and empty, but I slept more deeply than I expected. No strange, feverish nightmares. No waking in the middle of the night to reach for the cold half of the bed beside me. Only, when I opened my eyes, there was a brief moment of disorientation, as if I didn't quite know what day it was. In the bathroom, I studied the person in the mirror. 28. Faint lines had begun to form at the corners of my eyes, but my skin was still firm. A trace of darkness beneath my eyes, but nothing obvious. My hair fell to my shoulders, the ends slightly dry from neglect. In my last life, during those 10 years of divorce and conflict, I'd aged quickly. By my early 30s, I already had strands of gray. My eyes were always sharp with hostility and exhaustion, like a wounded animal constantly braced for a fight. Now, there was still time. I washed my face, carefully applied moisturizer and lotion, and put on light makeup. The woman in the mirror looked soft and composed, her features delicate, her lips tinted a gentle rose, calm and harmless at a glance. Not bad. I gave myself a small smile. When I left the apartment, Chad was already gone. A glass of warm milk and a sandwich sat on the dining table, with a sticky note beside them, "Don't forget to eat breakfast." His handwriting. Unchanged after 7 years. I used to be moved by details like this, thinking that no matter how busy he was, he still cared enough to look after me. Now it just felt ironic, this was probably how he expressed guilt, using the cheapest form of tenderness to make up for the deepest kind of hurt. I sat down, slowly finished the sandwich, and drank the milk. Then I crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash. At exactly 10, I stepped into the law firm Emily had recommended. "Ms. Miller, this way please." The receptionist led me into a conference room. When I pushed the door open, 3 people were already inside. Emily jumped up immediately and threw an arm around me. Finally. The other 2 were a woman in her early 50s with a sharp, composed air. Emily introduced her as Attorney Brooks, well known for handling divorce cases, and her assistant, a young man in glasses. "Ms. Miller, Emily has given me a general overview," Attorney Brooks said without preamble, gesturing for me to sit. "Let's start by going over the marital assets you share with Mr. Carter and what you're looking to achieve." The next 2 hours were the most brutally practical lesson I'd had in all my 28 years. Attorney Brooks's questions came one after another, precise and unflinching. "How many properties are there, and whose names are they under? Are you familiar with your husband's company's equity structure? What percentage do you hold? What assets are under your name? Investments, savings, financial accounts? Any marital debt? Did you sign a prenuptial or postnuptial agreement?" Answering was difficult. Half because I didn't know. Half because I was ashamed. 7 years of marriage, and I'd lived like a fool inside a fairy tale. I never asked about Chad's company, only knew it kept growing. He managed the household finances, I just used the credit card. The houses and cars were all in his name. The only property under mine was a small apartment my parents had given me before the wedding. So, legally speaking, Attorney Brooks said, removing her glasses and rubbing the bridge of her nose, you're almost walking away with nothing. Emily sucked in a sharp breath. Anna, you. I know. I gave a wry smile. Stupid, right? Not stupid. Trusting. Attorney Brooks put her glasses back on, her gaze sharp. But trust doesn't carry much weight in a divorce case. Ms. Miller, you're in a very passive position right now. If you sign the agreement Mr. Carter drafted, you'll get one property, one car, and $500,000 in cash. It sounds like a lot, but compared to his actual net worth, it's barely anything. How much is he worth, roughly? Emily asked. Chad's company was valued at over $15 million last year. He personally holds more than 60%. That doesn't even include his other investments and real estate. Attorney Brooks looked at me. And he's at fault. Infidelity during the marriage, and a pregnancy resulting from it. Those factors work in your favor when it comes to asset division. So what should I do? First, gather evidence. Attorney Brooks gestured for her assistant to hand me a list. Proof of the affair, chat records, photos, videos, witness statements, anything. Second, financial evidence. You need to find a way to get a clear picture of all the assets under his name. Third, delay. Delay? Yes. Attorney Brooks gave me a knowing look. Your husband is in a hurry to finalize the divorce. Why? Because the other woman is pregnant and doesn't have the luxury of waiting. The longer this drags on, the more it works in your favor. He can wait. Ms. Reed can't. I stared at the dense list of items in my hand, my fingertips turning cold. This feels disgusting, I said under my breath. Divorce strips away every layer of civility and exposes what people really are, Attorney Brooks replied evenly. Ms. Miller, you can choose to leave with dignity, but only if the other side offers you the same. If he doesn't, there's no reason for you to hold back. I was silent for a long time. The conference room was still, filled only with the low hum of the air conditioning. Attorney Brooks, I finally said, my voice slightly hoarse, I don't want to drag this out. I want the divorce finalized as soon as possible. The faster, the better. Anna. Emily blurted out. But, I lifted my head and met Attorney Brooks's eyes, I want what I'm entitled to. Every last bit. Not because I'm greedy, but because I paid my share during those 7 years. I lived in a basement with him. I ate instant noodles for a month straight with him. I went to business dinners until I was throwing up blood from stress. In the first 2 years of his company, when things were hardest, I worked my day job and then helped him with the books at night, ran errands for clients. Just because none of that is written on paper doesn't mean it doesn't count. Attorney Brooks held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Understood. Then we move fast, but we move hard and we move precisely. After we left the law firm, Emily kept glancing at me, like she wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. If you've got something to say, just say it, I said with a faint smile. Anna, you really have changed, Emily said carefully. It's not a bad thing. It just feels like you grew up 10 years overnight. Maybe. I looked out at the traffic streaming past. Or maybe I just finally woke up. In my last life, I never did. I burned myself to ash with hatred and resentment, and with it, any chance of starting over. This time, I wasn't going to live like that. Oh, right, Emily suddenly remembered. What about your parents? Should you give them a heads up? My parents had always liked Chad. Thought he was capable, dependable, good to me. My mom especially, she used to say, Anna, the best thing that ever happened to you was marrying Chad. I shook my head. Not yet. I'll tell them after it's done. Then where are you staying these next few days? You going back there? I am, I said. I have every right to be in that apartment. And there are things I need to sort through. Emily dropped me off outside the building. As we said goodbye, she suddenly pulled me into a tight hug. Anna, whatever you decide, I'm on your side, she said, her voice muffled. Just remember, you're not alone. My throat tightened, and I hugged her back just as hard. I know. Thank you, Emily. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights. I stood in the entryway for a long time. The place I used to call home now felt unfamiliar and cold. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, seemed to quietly remind me of the 7 years I'd poured into it and everything I'd lost. I walked into the study. Chad's study. He never let me in before, said he needed absolute quiet for work. I used to respect his boundaries. Now, it felt almost laughable. I turned on the computer. The password was my birthday, he'd never changed it. The desktop was clean, just a few work folders. I opened them one by one. Mostly company files, project reports. Until I clicked on a folder labeled a private, and found an entirely different world waiting inside. There were photos inside. So many of them. Pictures of Chad and Ivy together, at restaurants, at the movies, out in the countryside, in hotel rooms. Ivy did look young, her smile bright with dimples, leaning against Chad like she belonged there. And Chad, the expression on his face was one I hadn't seen in a long time. Relaxed. Gentle. There were also screenshots of chat logs. A secondary messaging account of Chad's, profile picture all black. They talked about daily life, about the future, about after the baby is born. Ivy, Chad, you will divorce her and marry me, right? Chad. Yeah. Once I get everything sorted out. Ivy, what about Ms. Miller? Will she hate me? Chad, I'll compensate her. Ivy, I'm scared. I'm scared she might hurt our baby. Chad, don't be. I'm here. I went through them all, one by one, then closed the folder. A dull ache spread through my chest, but strangely, it wasn't sharp. It felt like I'd already hurt so much that another cut barely registered. I took out a flash drive and copied everything. The photos, the chat logs, the financial statements, the equity structure, the bank records. Attorney Brooks was right, I needed to know exactly who I was up against, and what kind of assets were involved. When the transfer was done, I restored everything on the computer and left the study. Back in the living room, I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch, sipping slowly. Outside, the sky darkened as the city lights flickered on one by one. The place I'd lived in for 7 years would soon no longer be my home. No, maybe it never really was. A home should be a castle built by two people, not a cage built for one. My phone buzzed. Chad. Not coming home for dinner tonight. Don't wait up. Short. Detached. Like a notice from a boss to an employee. I replied, okay. After a moment, I added another message, I've reviewed the agreement. Some clauses need to be revised. Let's talk tomorrow. He replied almost instantly, sure. Tomorrow night, 7. At home. I didn't respond again. I set the phone down and kept looking out the window. The night deepened, my blurred reflection faint in the glass. I raised my glass toward it and whispered. Anna, welcome back. Chapter 4. At 7 the next evening, Chad came home right on time. He was carrying a paper bag from my favorite dessert place, their signature chestnut cake. Every time we fought in the past, he'd buy one on the way back, a silent peace offering. I took the cake from him and set it on the dining table without opening it. Have you eaten? He asked, loosening his tie. I have. You? Not yet. He glanced at me. You didn't cook? No. I wasn't sure if you'd be coming back. The air felt awkward. Conversations this polite and distant were rare between us. Before, we were either sweet or at each other's throats. Moments like this, calm, restrained, almost like strangers, hardly ever existed. Then, I'll take a shower first, he said, turning toward the bedroom. Chad. I stopped him. He turned back. Let's talk. Now. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay. We sat on the living room couch, a person's distance between us. The divorce agreement lay on the coffee table, along with the revised version I'd printed. I'll start, I said, picking up my copy. I've read your agreement. One property, one car, $500,000 in cash. It looks generous, but I don't accept it. His brows knit slightly. If there's something you're not satisfied with, say it. It's not about one thing. I'm not satisfied with any of it. I pushed my revised document toward him. What I want is all in there. He picked it up and began flipping through the pages. His expression darkened. 20% of the company's shares, the apartment we're living in, the house on the east side, and $5 million in cash. He read aloud, his voice turning cold. Anna, do you even hear yourself? I do. I met his gaze calmly. And I think it's fair. Fair? He almost laughed in disbelief. I built that company from nothing. What does it have to do with you? The apartment and the villa, I bought those. What right do you have to ask for them? What right? I repeated, a faint smile tugging at my lips. Chad, the initial funding for your company, 500,000, came from my parents as part of our wedding money. Your first deal was secured through my father's connections. In those first 2 years, when the company was barely surviving, I worked my day job and did your books at night so the finances wouldn't fall apart. When you drank with clients until you were hospitalized for stomach bleeding, who stayed by your side for 3 days and nights without sleep? I said it all in one breath, my chest rising and falling. Do none of those count as a right? He was momentarily speechless, his expression shifting. That was all in the past, he said finally, looking away. And I haven't treated you badly. All these years, when have I ever refused you anything you wanted? I wanted your time. Your attention. I wanted you to love me the way you used to, I said softly. Did you give me that? He fell silent. See? What you want, I can't give. What I want, you won't give. I leaned back against the couch, exhaustion washing over me. So let's not pretend this is about anything else. Let's talk about money. Money's honest. He took a deep breath, then slowly let it out, like he was trying to steady himself. The shares are impossible. The company isn't mine alone. There are other shareholders, I can't give you that much. The apartment, fine, you can have it. The house is out of the question. My parents stay there sometimes. As for cash, 2 million. That's my limit. 5 million, plus the apartment. I can lower the equity to 15%, but it has to be written into the agreement that I have voting rights on major decisions. I didn't yield an inch. Anna. His voice shot up. Don't push this too far. Who's pushing too far? I stood up too, meeting his eyes head on. Chad, you're the one who cheated. You're the one who got another woman pregnant. You're the one who handed me divorce papers on our anniversary. And now you're calling me unreasonable? His face turned ashen, his chest heaving. We stood there facing each other like two trapped animals. The air felt charged, thick with tension. After a long moment, he was the first to break. He sank back onto the couch, covering his face with his hands. Anna, does it really have to be like this? His voice sounded drained. Can't we just part on good terms? I'd like that too. I sat down again, my voice softer now. You're the one who made it impossible. When you came home with those divorce papers, did you even think about what a parting on good terms would look like? He had no answer. Chad, I'm not trying to extort you. I picked up the revised agreement. What I'm asking for may look outrageous to you. But to me, it's the price of 7 years of my youth, of everything I invested in a man and in a marriage. It's expensive, yes. But I think it's worth it. He stayed silent for a long, long time. Long enough for the clock on the wall to complete a full rotation. I need time to think, he finally said. And about the shares, I have to discuss it with the other shareholders. Fine, I said. You have 3 days. After that either we sign, or we settle this in court. His head snapped up. You've heard of Attorney Brooks, I assume. I let the name hang in the air. Emily found her for me. She said if we go to litigation, given the circumstances, I could walk away with more than what I'm asking for now. And if this drags on for a year or two, do you think Ms. Reed can afford to wait that long? That last line broke him. His face went pale, and the way he looked at me was as if I were a stranger. You've changed, Anna, he murmured. Yeah, I have. I let out a faint, humorless smile. You forced me to. We parted on bad terms that night. Chad slammed the door and went into the guest room. I stayed in the living room alone, sitting in the dark for a long time. The chestnut cake was still on the dining table, the box unopened. I walked over and lifted the lid. It was beautifully made, the chestnut cream smooth and fragrant. I scooped a bite with a spoon and put it in my mouth. It was cloyingly sweet. So sweet it made me want to gag. But I kept eating, bite after bite, until the entire cake was gone. Like I was completing a ritual. A farewell ritual. Saying goodbye to the Anna who loved sweets, who softened too easily, who believed a slice of cake could fix everything. When I finished, I washed my hands, went back to the bedroom, and started packing. Clothes, shoes, skincare, books, small personal items. I moved slowly, pausing over each thing, deciding whether to take it or leave it. Some things carried too many memories. Taking them felt like a burden. Leaving them behind felt like a wound. In the end, I packed only 2 suitcases, one for clothes, one for important personal belongings and documents. Everything else, I left behind. The photos. The matching couple items. The gifts he'd given me that I once treasured. All of it. By the time I finished, it was 2 in the morning. I took a shower and lay down on the bed, but sleep wouldn't come. My phone lit up. Emily. How did it go? Did it fall apart? Not exactly. But we didn't reach an agreement either. He wants 3 days to think. Think my ass. He's just stalling. Anna, don't you dare go soft on him. I looked at the screen, smiling faintly as I typed back, I won't. Not this time. I set the phone down and stared up at the ceiling. 3 days. What would happen in those 3 days? I didn't know. But I did know one thing, this time, I wouldn't back down. Chapter 5. The next morning, Chad left early. I didn't ask where he was going, and I had no interest in knowing. Probably off to comfort Ms. Reed, the one who needed rest, and couldn't be upset. I stayed home, sorting through the documents I needed to take with me. My diploma, degree certificate, professional credentials, and an old photo album, pictures from before I graduated college. Back then, my smile was bright, my eyes clear. I hadn't met Chad yet. I hadn't lived through the mess of the past 7 years. On the last page was a solo photo. I stood by the sea in a white dress, arms stretched wide, grinning without a care in the world. On the back, in my own college handwriting, Anna, you have to stay this happy forever. I stared at that line for a long time, until my eyes began to sting. Forever happy. What a luxury. My phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Anna? A middle-aged man's voice, polite, measured. Yes. Who's this? I'm Mr. Carter's attorney. My surname is Harrison. I'm calling regarding the divorce agreement. Mr. Carter has asked me to communicate with you. That was fast. Chad clearly wanted this resolved as soon as possible. All right. Time and place? If you're available, this afternoon at 3, at our firm. I'll send you the address shortly. Okay. I hung up and immediately called Attorney Brooks. After listening, she let out a cold laugh. They're moving quickly. Ms. Reed must be pushing hard. Ms. Miller, I'll go with you this afternoon. Remember, no matter what they say, no matter how they pressure you, don't agree to anything on the spot. We stick to our final version. Understood. At 2:50 p.m., Attorney Brooks and I arrived at Harrison Law Firm. Inside the meeting room, Attorney Harrison was already there, a man in his early 40s, rigid and unsmiling. Chad sat beside him, face dark. Ms. Miller, Attorney Brooks, please, Harrison gestured. After brief formalities, they moved straight to the point. Ms. Miller's demands have been conveyed to me, Harrison adjusted his glasses. Frankly, they're not realistic. 15% equity, a property, and $5 million in cash, this goes beyond reasonable compensation. What counts as reasonable compensation isn't up to you or Mr. Carter. It's determined under state law, Brooks said evenly. Assets accumulated during the marriage are considered marital property. The increase in value of Mr. Carter's company during that time is subject to division. The exact percentage is negotiable, but there has to be a share. The company was founded before the marriage, Harrison countered. While postmarital appreciation may be considered joint property, Ms. Miller's contribution must be evaluated. Contribution? Brooks smiled faintly and pulled a document from her briefcase. These are records of Ms. Miller providing unpaid financial and administrative support during the company's most difficult period, emails, work logs, employee testimony. Shall I read a few excerpts? Chad shot me a look, shock and anger colliding. You investigated me, he asked, voice low. I understood the situation, I met his gaze. I needed to know what these 7 years of my life were worth. You. Mr. Carter, Brooks cut in, we're negotiating, not arguing. If you want to challenge the evidence, we can request a court-ordered financial review, possibly a full forensic accounting. That will take time. A year, maybe 2. You can afford to wait. Can Ms. Reed? That last sentence landed exactly where it hurt most. His face turned ashen, fists clenched so tightly the knuckles blanched. Attorney Harrison glanced at him, cleared his throat, and said, "Let's each take a step back. Equity, we can offer a portion, but no more than 5%. Cash, 3 million. And the property, the condo you're currently living in. That's Mr. Carter's bottom line. 10%, 5 million, the condo plus the East Side house," Attorney Brooks replied calmly. "That's Ms. Miller's bottom line." "That's impossible." "Then it seems we have nothing to discuss." Brooks made a move to stand. "Wait." Chad's voice was hoarse. He looked at me, his expression tangled, anger, resentment, and something else, a trace of pleading. "Anna, does it really have to be like this?" he asked. "Is bargaining all we have left between us?" I looked at him and suddenly felt a flicker of bitter amusement. "Chad, you turned it into a transaction first," I said. "The moment you handed me that divorce agreement and told me to name my terms, this stopped being anything else." He opened his mouth, but in the end said nothing. His shoulders sagged as he lowered his head. The conference room fell into a suffocating silence. After a long moment, Harrison sighed. "How about this, we each take some time to reconsider. Let's call it here for today and talk again later." "That works," Brooks said with a nod. "But I'd like to remind Mr. Carter of one thing, Ms. Reed's pregnancy won't wait forever. The longer this drags on, the worse it is for you. A child born outside of marriage can complicate things later, legal status, inheritance, all of it." Chad's head snapped up, eyes sharp enough to kill. But Brooks was already calmly packing her files and standing. "Ms. Miller, let's go." Once we left the firm and got into the car, Brooks finally exhaled. "That was intense," Emily said, pressing a hand to her chest. She'd insisted on coming and had waited downstairs all afternoon. I honestly thought he might snap and start throwing punches. "He wouldn't," Brooks said as she started the engine. "Chad's a smart man. Smart men know when to retreat. And Ms. Reed is his biggest vulnerability." "So what now?" I asked. "We wait," Brooks said. "I'd bet he caves within 3 days. 10% equity might be tough, but 8 is realistic. The cash and property, we should be able to land those. And if he drags it out? He can't afford to." Brooks gave me a knowing look. "Ms. Miller, do you know where Ivy went this morning?" I shook my head. "She's been going to an OBGYN, Brooks said. From what I heard, she's about 10 weeks along and not doing well. The doctor put her on bed rest." He paused, then added, "In that state, stress is the last thing she needs." "Do you really think Chad will make her wait a year?" I froze. "Attorney Brooks, you. Relax, nothing illegal," she said with a small smile. "Just understanding the situation. Know your opponent, know yourself, win every battle." The car crawled forward through rush hour traffic. Outside, the city lights flickered on one by one, draped in the hazy warmth of early evening. "Anna," Emily suddenly reached over and grabbed my hand. "Does it hurt?" I looked at her and smiled. "A little. But not because of him, because of myself. Because those 7 years weren't worth it. I'm glad you can see it that way." Emily pulled me into a hug. "Out with the old, in with the new. Once you're free of Chad, Miss Miller's back in the game." "Not a warrior," Brooks teased. "A beauty." We all laughed. And as I laughed, I felt tears threatening to rise. But they never fell. I'd cried them all out in another lifetime. In this one, I just wanted to live well. 3 days later, Chad called. "Anna, let's talk," he said, his voice tired. "Just the two of us." Chapter 6. We met at a cafe we used to go to all the time. I chose the place. Full circle, I told myself. We started here, might as well end here. By the time I arrived, Chad was already there, sitting by the window at our old spot. A half-finished Americano sat in front of him. He looked worn, dark circles under his eyes, stubble shadowing his jaw where he hadn't shaved clean. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the seat across from him when he saw me. I sat and ordered a latte. After the server left, silence settled between us. Soft music drifted through the cafe, mingling with the low murmur of conversation from nearby tables. "Ivy's in the hospital," Chad said suddenly. "Yesterday. She got upset, started bleeding." My hand paused mid-stir. "The doctor says she needs complete bed rest. No stress at all," he went on, voice low. "Otherwise, the baby might not make it." "So?" I looked up at him. "So? He drew in a breath, like it cost him everything. I agree to your terms. 10% equity, 5 million, the condo and the East Side house. The equity transfer will take time, there's a process. But the cash and properties will be handled within a week of signing. I said nothing, waiting for them but, there it was. I have one condition. Go ahead. Once we sign, we're done. Completely, he said, locking his gaze on mine. We go our separate ways. No interference in each other's lives. And you won't hurt Ivy or the baby. I laughed. Really laughed. Chad, I said, is that what you think of me? That I'd hurt a pregnant woman out of jealousy? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His eyes said enough. Yes. In his mind, I was capable of it. Or maybe, the woman I used to be was. But not anymore. I agree, I said. As long as you honor what you promised, I won't appear in your life again. As for Ivy and the baby, don't worry. I have no interest. He seemed to exhale, his shoulders loosening. I brought the agreement, he said, pulling 2 copies from his briefcase and sliding them toward me. Take a look. If everything's fine, we sign. I took them and read carefully. The terms were clear, matching the result of the negotiation. Brooks had already reviewed the digital version and confirmed everything checked out. I picked up the pen and signed my name on the last page. Slowly. Firmly. Like I was severing the last tie to the person I used to be. When I finished, I pushed 1 copy back to him. Your turn. Chad took the pen. The tip hovered above the paper for a few seconds before he finally signed his name in a quick, decisive stroke. 7 years of marriage ended in that moment. The funds and property transfers will begin within the week, he said, gathering his copy of the agreement as he stood. My attorney will handle the equity paperwork. It should move forward soon. He hesitated for a moment. I should go. Wait. He turned back. Chad, I said, looking at the man I had loved for 7 years, the man I had hated, resented, and mourned, one last question. Go ahead. If there had been no Ivy, no pregnancy, would you still have asked for a divorce? He froze, clearly not expecting it. Silence spread between us. The cafe music shifted to an old song, a woman's voice humming softly in the background. I don't know, he said at last, voice quiet. Maybe. I still would have. Why? Because I was tired. He gave a faint, bitter smile. Don't you think so, Anna? These past 7 years, we slowly became strangers living under the same roof. I knew you were good to me. But somewhere along the way, what I felt for you stopped being love. It became responsibility. Habit. He paused, then continued. With Ivy, I feel relaxed. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to perform. She depends on me, needs me, it makes me feel alive, like I still matter. But with you, I always felt like a sinner. Because I owed you too much. More than I could ever repay. I listened quietly. A sharp ache flickered somewhere deep in my chest, but it faded just as quickly, dissolving like a drop of water in the ocean. I understand, I said, nodding. Thank you for being honest. He looked at me, something unreadable in his eyes, as if he wanted to say more. In the end, he only nodded. Take care. You too. He turned and walked away. His silhouette stretched long under the cafe's warm lighting, then disappeared beyond the door. I stayed where I was and finished the latte that had long since gone cold. It tasted bitter, but the aftertaste held the faintest trace of sweetness. By the time I stepped outside, night had fully fallen. Streetlights glowed, traffic streamed past. I stood at the curb and took a deep breath of the cool air. My phone vibrated. Emily. Done talking?
Yeah.
Signed. Everything okay? He didn't pull anything, right? No. Just like we agreed. Good. Then let's celebrate tonight, my treat. Pick anything you want. Not tonight, I said. I'm tired. I want to rest. All right. Get some sleep. I'll come by tomorrow, and we'll start planning your new life. After hanging up, I flagged down a taxi. Where to, miss? The driver asked. I gave him the address of the apartment. Then I paused and changed my mind. No, the Riverside place. The car moved through familiar streets. The city I had lived in for 28 years suddenly felt both strange and new. Neon lights streamed past the window, flickering across my face. I remembered a night many years ago, Chad holding my hand as we walked along the river. The wind had picked up, and he'd taken off his jacket to drape it over my shoulders. "Anna," he'd said, "when I make enough money, I'll buy you a place here. One where you can open the window and see the water." Back then, I thought the future would be long. Long enough for every promise to come true. Later, we did have money. But he forgot that promise. Or maybe he remembered. He just made it to someone else. It didn't matter anymore. I leaned back against the seat and closed my eyes. From today on, Anna's life would be lived a different way. Chapter 7. In the week after we signed, Chad followed through on everything. 5 million wired to my account. The condo and the East Side house were transferred into my name. The equity transfer agreement was signed, still pending procedural steps, but already irreversible. I moved out of the apartment we had shared and temporarily settled into the villa. Emily came to help me move and couldn't stop marveling at the empty living room. "Anna, this is insane. You basically got rich overnight." "Rich?" I kept unpacking. "This is 7 years of my life, paid back in full. Every dollar came with blood and tears." "Fair point." She stuck out her tongue, then leaned closer. "So what now? Travel the world? Shop till you drop? Or get yourself a hot young boyfriend?" I laughed. "First, I rest. I'm exhausted. I just want to breathe for a while." "Good." Emily squeezed my shoulder. "Anything you need, call me. 24/7. After she left, I wandered through the villa alone. It was big. Too big. Decorated in the minimalist style Chad loved, black, white, gray. Cold. Lifeless. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the carefully landscaped but oddly soulless garden, I suddenly realized the house felt like a luxurious cage. No. This had to change. I called an interior designer right away. A young woman answered, clearly excited after hearing my request. "A full renovation? Do you have a style in mind?" "Warm. Bright. No black, white, gray. I like natural wood tones, off-white, light gray, and green. Lots of plants." "Got it. I'll bring proposals tomorrow." After hanging up, I called a real estate agent to list the apartment. "Ms. Miller, are you sure you want to sell? That area is in high demand. Holding on to it could mean strong appreciation." "Sell it," I said without hesitation. "I don't want to keep the memories." "Understood. I'll arrange it as soon as possible." By the time everything was settled, it was already dark. I ordered takeout and ate alone in the vast, empty dining room. Halfway through the meal, tears suddenly slipped down my face and fell into the bowl. Not sadness. Not regret. Just an overwhelming sense of emptiness. 7 years had come to an end, just like that. Like waking from a long, exhausting dream, only to find the world both familiar and strangely unfamiliar. My phone rang. "Mom." I wiped my tears, cleared my throat, and answered. "Mom." "Anna, have you eaten?" "Yeah, what about you and Dad?" "Just finished." "Is Chad home?" I fell silent for a few seconds. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "I divorced Chad." A long silence followed. So long I thought the call had dropped. "Mom? When did this happen?" Her voice was soft, heavy. "We signed last week. The paperwork was finalized today." "Why?" Her voice trembled. "Weren't you two doing fine? How did this suddenly?" "He's seeing someone else. She's pregnant. They're getting married." I kept my tone as steady as possible. "Mom, don't worry. I'm okay. Really. You silly girl." She started crying. "Why didn't you tell us earlier? You went through all that alone. I didn't want you to worry. It's all settled now. I received a fair settlement. I'll be fine." "Do you think this is about money?" she said through tears. "My daughter was hurt, treated like this, how could I not feel it? Where are you now? I'll have your dad come get you. Come home." "It's okay, Mom. I'm staying at the villa for now. I'm fine. Really. I can take care of myself." It took a long time to talk her out of rushing over immediately. After hanging up, I slumped into the chair, more exhausted than I'd been after negotiating with Chad. But the heavy weight in my chest felt lighter. At least I didn't have to hide it anymore. In the days that followed, I slipped into a life I had never experienced before, one that was entirely, completely mine. The villa was under renovation, so I temporarily rented a small apartment. I slept until I woke naturally, then decided what to eat, where to go, what to read, what to watch. I didn't have to worry about Chad's daily life anymore. Didn't have to keep a fragile marriage from collapsing. Didn't have to wonder whether he'd come home, or who he was with. At first, it felt strange. Like something was missing, like a hollow space inside me. But soon, that emptiness was replaced by something else. A long-forgotten feeling. Control over my own life. I could stay up until 3 in the morning watching an old movie. I could wake at noon and eat brunch in my pajamas. I could buy a plane ticket on a whim and fly anywhere I wanted. Living alone, it turned out, could feel this free. A month later, Emily came to see me, looking unusually secretive. She said she had somewhere to take me. Where? You'll see when we get there. She drove me to an office building. The elevator took us straight to the 28th floor. When the glass doors opened, I stepped into a wide, sunlit open space, hastily designed, but completely empty, not a single piece of furniture inside. This is. A friend of mine moved his company out, so the place opened up. Emily spun in a slow circle. Great location, good size, reasonable rent. So, any ideas? What kind of ideas? Start a studio. Her eyes lit up. You've always loved floral design. Didn't you once say you wanted to open a flower shop? Now you've got the time and the money, why not try? I froze. Floral design really was my passion. I'd loved it since college. After I got married, Chad used to say, it's fine as a hobby. Just don't take it too seriously. And I hadn't. All those classes and certificates ended up buried in boxes, never touched again. Do you really think I can do it? I asked, hesitating. Why not? Emily slung an arm around my shoulder. Anna, you were top of our class back then. You succeed at whatever you put your mind to. It's just a studio. Do it. I've got your back, money, manpower, whatever you need. I looked out at the busy streets below, something stirring inside me. Why not, indeed? I was 28. But it felt like my life was only just beginning. Chapter 8. Setting up the studio went more smoothly than I'd imagined. Maybe it was one of those after the storm things, everything that had gone wrong before seemed to turn into good luck once the divorce was over. The renovation crew was reliable and finished in a month. The business registration process sailed through, and the license came quickly. I named the studio First Bloom, after the idea of life beginning again, like the very first time. A quiet goodbye to the past. Emily became my first partner and my #1 employee. She quit her job and came to help me, calling it investing in the future. Emily, are you sure about this? I asked. Starting a business is risky. What if we lose money? Then we lose money, she said, unfazed. You've got cash. You can afford to keep me fed. I laughed. I'm serious. No regrets? She dropped the joking expression and looked at me with rare sincerity. Anna, this might be the one thing in my life I'll never regret, standing here, doing this with you. She paused. You know what? Ever since the divorce, you've been glowing. There's this energy about you I've never seen before. I believe in you. And I believe in myself. We're going to make this work. Warmth spread through my chest. I pulled her into a tight hug. Thank you. For what? That's what sisters are for. We didn't hold a grand opening. Just a few potted plants outside the door and a simple sign. But to our surprise, business started coming in almost immediately. First it was Emily's social circle that brought in customers. Then friends brought friends. Word spread. My floral style leaned towards something more natural, a little wild, very different from the polished, symmetrical bouquets most shops offered. That difference, surprisingly, attracted a group of clients who wanted something unique. In the first month, we broke even. In the second, we started turning a profit. It wasn't much, but it exceeded my expectations. What surprised me even more was receiving an order for wedding florals. The couple was young, referred by a friend. The bride, Sophie, was sweet and bright. The moment she saw photos of my work, she fell in love with it. Ms. Miller, I love this style. It's not forced. It feels natural, like the flowers just grew out of a forest. Communication went smoothly. The wedding theme was spring garden. Sophie wanted a kind of effortless romance. I designed a palette built around white, soft pink, and pale green. Peonies, tulips, and ranunculus as the main flowers, with eucalyptus and dusty miller for foliage, finished with touches of wild grass and dried branches to enhance the organic feel. The day before the wedding, Emily, our assistant, and I spent the entire day setting up the venue. By the time we finished, it was late at night. Sophie and her fiancé came by in person to thank us. It's beautiful, more beautiful than I imagined. Sophie's eyes were red. Thank you, Ms. Miller. You're welcome. I'm just glad you like it. I handed her the bouquet. Good luck tomorrow. She nodded eagerly. On the drive back, I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open, but my heart felt full. It was a feeling I hadn't had in a long time, being needed, being recognized. Anna, look. Emily nudged me, gesturing out the window. I followed her gaze to the floor-to-ceiling windows of an upscale restaurant. Inside, Chad sat across from a young woman. She was beautiful, with long hair and a loose dress that revealed the gentle curve of her belly. Chad was placing food onto her plate, his expression soft. Ivy. They looked happy. Want me to go throw a drink at them? Emily rolled up her sleeves. Don't. I caught her arm. It's all in the past. You're really not upset at all? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, I admitted. But mostly. I feel relieved. Look at them, they're doing well without me. And I'm doing well without him. Isn't that enough? Emily studied me for a few seconds, then gave a thumbs up. Anna, you're incredible. Seriously. I smiled and looked away from the window. Some sights are meant to be passed by. Not lingered over. Life moved on. The studio gradually found its rhythm. I started taking on floral installations for corporate events and launched workshops for office workers and stay-at-home moms who were interested in floral design. My days became busy and fulfilling. Sometimes I'd hear news about Chad through mutual friends. He married Ivy. Quiet ceremony, just close family and friends. She gave birth to a son. Chad was overjoyed and posted a photo of the baby's tiny hand. I tapped like and kept scrolling. Just like I would for any other acquaintance. Emily said I had a big heart. I told her it wasn't that. I had simply let go. Truly letting someone go isn't about hatred or resentment. It's indifference. Their joy and sorrow no longer stir anything inside you. In your life, they become nothing more than a distant symbol. And that was a good place to be. Late in the fall, I received a phone call. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice sounded faintly familiar. Is this Anna Miller? Yes. Who is this? This is Ivy, she said after a brief pause. Chad's wife. I froze for a moment. Ms. Carter. What can I do for you? I wanted to meet you. In person. Would that be all right? I had meant to refuse. But for some reason, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe. When I arrived, Ivy was already there. She looked a little fuller than the last time I'd seen her, her complexion healthy. She wore an off-white sweater, her long hair loosely pinned up, giving her a soft, homey air. Ms. Miller, she said, standing up, a little nervous. Anna is fine. I sat down and ordered a pot of black tea. The atmosphere was awkward. We sat in silence until the tea arrived. So, I said, breaking the tension, why did you want to see me? Ivy bit her lip, clearly choosing her words. I wanted to apologize, she said at last. For what happened before. I shouldn't have contacted you the way I did. And I shouldn't have interfered in your marriage. I was caught off guard. It's in the past, I said. And relationships are never one-sided. If Chad hadn't wanted it, you wouldn't have had the chance to step in. But I still feel sorry, she said, lifting her eyes. They were slightly red. Chad, he talks about you sometimes. Says he owes you a lot. Says you're a good person. That he didn't know how to appreciate you. I smiled faintly but said nothing. After we got married, things weren't as happy as I imagined, Ivy continued, her voice growing softer. He works a lot. He's rarely home. I'm alone with the baby most of the time. Sometimes I feel very lonely. And his mother doesn't like me much. She thinks I'm not good enough for him. I didn't know what to say. Comfort her? That felt unnecessary. Sympathize? Not quite. Ms. Carter, I said carefully, these are things you shouldn't be telling me. You should talk to Chad. Or to your friends. We're not close enough for this kind of conversation. She froze for a moment, then gave a small, self-conscious smile. You're right. That was inappropriate of me. It's just, I don't really have friends in this city. Chad's friends are his friends, not mine. Sometimes I feel so suffocated I just want to talk to someone, but I don't even know who. I lifted my teacup and took a sip. Your life is yours, I said. Whether it's good or bad depends on you, not anyone else. You're still young. You have a long road ahead. Instead of dwelling on the past, think about the future. She looked at me, her expression complicated. Do you hate me? I did, once, I answered honestly. But not anymore. Hate is exhausting. I'm too tired for it now. She sat in silence for a long time, then nodded slowly. I understand. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for agreeing to see me, and for saying all this. You're welcome. As we were about to leave, she suddenly called out to me. Oh, next month we're having a small get-together for the baby, she said. Chad wants to keep it simple. Would you like to come? I paused and turned back to look at her. No. But please give the baby my best wishes. When I stepped outside, the autumn wind hit my face, cool and sharp. I pulled my coat tighter and walked slowly down the sidewalk. The conversation with Ivy felt like a dream. Unreal, and yet undeniably real. She said Chad still talked about me, said he owed me, said I was someone he had failed to cherish. How ironic. When we were together, he didn't value me. After we parted, he couldn't stop looking back. People always cling to what they've lost. But it didn't matter anymore. All the love, the resentment, the past, they were like fallen leaves in autumn. What needed to fall had already fallen. Come spring, something new would grow. Chapter 9. 6 months after the studio opened, we landed our first truly major project. A luxury shopping center was opening and needed a full floral design concept. The budget was high, and so were the expectations. There were several competing studios, well-known names in the industry. Emily and I stayed up for several nights straight before finalizing our proposal. On presentation day, my palms were damp with nerves. The conference room was filled with people, executives from the mall, brand representatives, and someone I never expected to see. Adrian. My college classmate. He'd once confessed to me and been turned down because I already had a boyfriend. Later, he went abroad for graduate school, and we lost touch. I never imagined we'd meet again here. And from the looks of it, he was one of the project leads. Anna. He recognized me immediately, surprise flickering in his eyes before turning into a smile. Long time no see. Long time, I replied with a nod, keeping my tone professional. The presentation went smoothly. My concept centered on urban forest, using lush greenery, moss, and weathered wood to create a striking contrast, the sense of nature reclaiming the city. The panel seemed intrigued. They asked a lot of questions, and I answered them one by one. Afterward, Adrian approached me. The design is excellent. Very original. Thank you. Want to grab dinner? Catch up? I was about to refuse, but Emily nudged me from behind, wiggling her eyebrows. Sure, I said instead. Adrian chose the restaurant, a quiet Japanese place. Inside the private room, we sat across from each other, the atmosphere subtly charged. I never thought I'd run into you here, he said, pouring tea. And definitely didn't expect you to open a floral studio. I didn't expect you to come back either. Or to end up in real estate, I replied. Family business, he said with a small shrug. But you, what made you choose this? I remember you studied finance in college. I like it, I said simply. So I did it. I heard you, got divorced, he said. I raised an eyebrow. News travels fast. The circle's small, Adrian replied, watching me. Are you doing okay? I'm doing great. Better than when I was married. He smiled, something in it I couldn't quite read. That's good. He lifted his teacup. To new beginnings. To new beginnings. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. We talked about our college years, about everything that had happened since, about industry gossip. Adrian had changed, more mature now, sharp in the way he spoke, carrying the confidence of a businessman, yet still easygoing and humorous. When it was time to leave, he drove me back to the studio. "Oh, one more thing," he said before I got out. "That project, it's basically yours. I'll have my assistant reach out tomorrow to start the contract process." "Really?" I was genuinely surprised. "Of course. Your proposal was the best." He paused, then added, "But I do have a selfish reason." "What is it?" "I want to pursue you." He looked straight into my eyes, completely serious. "Anna, this time you don't have a boyfriend. You're not married. Can you give me a chance?" I froze. "Adrian, don't reject me just yet," he cut in gently. "I know you just got out of a marriage. You need time. I'm not in a hurry. I can wait. Think of it as giving me a trial period." I couldn't help laughing. "Adrian, how many girls have you used that line on?" "Just you." He raised a hand like he was swearing an oath. "I promise." "Let me think about it," I said. "Take your time. Tell me when you've decided." Back at the studio, Emily rushed over the moment I walked in. Well, does Adrian like you or what?" "I told you, did you see the way he looked at you? Practically melting." "Don't be ridiculous." I pushed her aside. "We were just catching up." "Catching up? For 2 hours? Catching up and he drives you back? Catching up and he looks at you like he wants to eat you alive?" Emily rolled her eyes. "Anna, don't tell me you didn't notice." "I noticed." "So what?" I collapsed onto the couch. "I've only been divorced for 6 months. I don't want to get into another relationship. 6 months is long enough." Emily dropped down beside me, suddenly earnest. "Anna, you can't let one bad experience ruin everything. Adrian is great, handsome, capable, good family background, and he's clearly always liked you. He chased you all through college, and now you've crossed paths again. If that's not fate, what is?" "Emily," I turned to look at her, "am I unhappy right now?" "No." "Then why should I change anything?" Emily opened her mouth, then stopped, unable to answer. "I have a career, friends, money, freedom. I can do what I want, go wherever I want. Why would I tie myself to someone again?" "But, don't you get lonely?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "But compared to loneliness, I'm more afraid of repeating the past. Of giving everything again and ending up with nothing but wreckage." "Emily. I'm scared." She fell silent and squeezed my hand. "I get it. But Anna, not every man is Chad." "Adrian." "I know." I patted her hand gently. "Give me time. When I'm truly ready, I'll think about it." "All right." Emily sighed. "But remember, whatever you choose, I've got your back." "I know." "Thank you, Emily." That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. Adrian's reappearance was like a stone thrown into a still lake, ripples spreading outward. I had to admit, I was shaken. He was everything one would call an ideal partner. And that was exactly why I hesitated. Wasn't my last marriage beautiful in the beginning, too? Chad had once cared for me deeply. He'd made promises about loving me for a lifetime. And look how that turned out. People change. Promises break. I was afraid. Truly afraid. Just as my thoughts spiraled, my phone lit up. A message from Adrian. "Made it home. Yeah. Thanks for dinner tonight. Anytime. Get some rest. Good night." Good night. I stared at those 2 words for a long time. Then I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. Let things unfold on their own. What's meant to come will come. What's meant to leave can't be held back. Chapter 10. Our collaboration with the shopping center went smoothly. When the project was completed, the results exceeded expectations. The mall saw a noticeable increase in foot traffic, and our studio gained a bit of a reputation in the industry. New partnerships started coming in one after another. Emily and I were so busy we barely had time to breathe. Adrian would occasionally invite me out to dinner, movies. His intentions were clear, but never overwhelming. He kept a respectful distance, just as he'd promised. I didn't accept, but I didn't refuse either. Like he said, a trial period. I was observing him and my own heart. Life moved forward, calm and steady. Until one afternoon, an uninvited guest stormed into the studio. Chad's mother. My former mother-in-law. Anna. She pushed the door open, her voice loud enough to draw the attention of several students in the middle of a floral class. My heart sank, but I still stood up to greet her. Mrs. Carter, what brings you here? Is something wrong? Is something wrong? Of course something's wrong. Her face was flushed with anger as she slammed her bag onto the reception counter. I'm asking you, did you go see Ivy? Did you say something to her? She's making a scene now, saying she wants a divorce from Chad. I froze. I didn't. You're still denying it, she snapped, cutting me off. Ivy told me everything. You met her for tea and filled her head with nonsense. I knew you had bad intentions. Even after the divorce, you won't leave Chad alone. Can't stand seeing him happy, is that it? Mrs. Carter, please calm down. Emily stepped in front of me. If you have something to say it properly. Don't make a scene here. Why shouldn't I make a scene? I want everyone to see what kind of person she is. If she can't be happy, she won't let anyone else be either. The students began whispering, their eyes shifting toward me with open curiosity. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay composed. I did meet Ivy once, I said evenly. But she contacted me first. We just had tea and talked for a bit. As for her wanting a divorce, I know nothing about it. And frankly, what does that have to do with me? What does it have to do with you? You must have said something, turned her against Chad. I don't have that kind of time, I replied, my voice turning cold. If you have evidence, call the police. If not, please stop making accusations. This is my workplace. I'm working. I need you to leave. You're kicking me out, she sputtered. Anna, I never realized you were this vicious. You took so much of Chad's money in the divorce, and that's still not enough? Now you want to ruin his family too? How can you be this heartless? Mom. A sharp voice came from the doorway. Chad strode in, face dark. He glanced around, then lowered his voice. What are you doing here? Come home with me. I'm not leaving. I want to know exactly what she's trying to pull, his mother protested. Mom. Chad's tone hardened. He was practically dragging her toward the door. Stop embarrassing yourself, all right? I'm embarrassing myself? She's the one who's shameless. Divorced and still clinging to you. That's enough. Chad's voice rose suddenly, startling both his mother and me. I'm the one who asked for the divorce. I'm the one who wronged Anna. What right do you have to come here and accuse her? His eyes were red as he turned to me, his voice dropping. Anna, I'm sorry. I apologize on my mother's behalf. She hasn't been well lately. Her emotions are unstable. I'll take her away now. I said nothing, only nodded. Chad all but forced his mother out. The studio fell silent again, but the awkward tension lingered in the air. I'm sorry, everyone, I said to the students. We'll stop here for today. We'll reschedule the class. They left one by one. Emily shut the door and turned to me, worry written all over her face. Anna, are you okay? I'm fine. I shook my head and sank onto the couch, suddenly drained. What even was that? Emily fumed. Her son cheats, and she comes here to yell at you? Why doesn't she go after Ivy instead? She doesn't dare, I said with a faint, bitter smile. Ivy's carrying the Carter family's grandson. She's precious now. I'm just an outsider. Easier to blame. That's ridiculous, Emily snapped. You can't just let this slide. I'm going to have a word with Chad. Forget it. I pulled her back. There's no reasoning with his mother. And Ivy wanting a divorce, what's going on there? Who knows? Maybe the mistress finally got what she wanted and realized life isn't so great after all, Emily sneered. Serves her right. I stayed silent. A suspicion formed in my mind, but I didn't voice it. Sure enough, Chad called that night. Anna, I'm really sorry about today, he said, exhaustion thick in his voice. I'll talk to my mom. She won't bother you again. Okay. Anne. Ivy wanting a divorce has nothing to do with you, he added after a pause. It's her own issue. Don't take it to heart. What happened? She thinks I don't love her. Says I still have feelings for you. Chad let out a bitter laugh. Funny, isn't it? I gave up a 7-year marriage for her. And now she says I don't love her. I didn't know how to respond. Chad, I said after a long moment, do you love her? Silence filled the line. I don't know, he finally admitted. Maybe I did. Maybe it was just the novelty. But now. I'm tired. She wants so much love, so much attention, and I can't give it. I couldn't give it to you, and I can't give it to her. So you don't really love anyone, I said quietly. You only love yourself. He didn't argue. Chad, there's something I've always wanted to ask you, I continued. If you could go back and do it all over again, would you make the same choice? No. His answer came fast, firm. If I had another chance, I'd cherish you. I'd cherish our marriage. But Anna, life doesn't give us do-overs. Right. It doesn't, I said softly. So keep moving forward, Chad. Don't look back. Don't compare. Be good to Ivy. She's the one you chose. She's the mother of your child. Anna, you. I'm hanging up. From now on, unless it's something necessary, let's not stay in touch. I ended the call and leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. My phone rang again. This time, it was Adrian. I heard what happened today, he said without preamble. Do you need help? How did you hear about it? In your circle, nothing stays private, he replied. Want me to talk to Chad? No. I can handle it. You sure? I'm sure. All right. But there's something I want to say, he added. Go ahead. Some people and some things, you have to cut them off cleanly, Adrian said, his voice gentle but firm. You're not responsible for fixing other people's mistakes. I smiled. Got it. Thank you, Adrian. Anytime. Get some rest. Good night. Good night. After hanging up, I walked to the window. The night was deep, the city alive with scattered lights. Chad said he was tired. But I was tired too. The difference was, I had already walked out of it. Out of that muddy past, towards something wider, brighter. As for Ivy, as for Chad, as for all those tangled grudges and unfinished emotions, it could stay in yesterday. From now on, I only wanted, only needed, to live for myself. Chapter 11. After that incident, Chad's mother never came again. Chad didn't contact me either. My life returned to calm, like a lake settling after a stone had been thrown, ripples fading, the surface clear again. Adrian's trial period continued. He handled the distance well, never pushing, never pressuring. Like a cup of water at the perfect temperature, his presence was steady, unobtrusive, and somehow always just right. On weekends, he would ask me out. Sometimes we visited exhibitions, sometimes we went hiking, sometimes we just grabbed a simple meal. We talked about work, about life, about our interests. And I realized that beyond all the external advantages, Adrian himself was genuinely interesting, well-read, witty, easy to talk to. Being around him felt light. Comfortable. But I still hadn't said yes. The barrier in my heart wasn't fully gone yet. Until the day I collapsed at the studio. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. Emily sat beside the bed, eyes red. You're awake. She rushed forward. You scared me to death. You just dropped, no response no matter how I called your name. What happened? My throat felt dry. Low blood sugar. And overwork. The doctor walked in, a gentle middle-aged woman. Young lady, have you been under a lot of pressure lately? Irregular sleep? Skipping meals? I nodded. We'd taken on a major project recently. I'd pulled several all-nighters in a row and barely eaten. Your body is your foundation, the doctor said as she wrote in my chart. You can't keep pushing like this. Even steel wears down. Stay for observation today. If everything's fine, you can leave tomorrow. And from now on, rest properly. Eat on time. Understood? Understood. After she left, Emily flicked my forehead. You heard her. Eat on time. Get rest. You're not invincible. All right, I surrendered. Just then, the door opened. Adrian walked in quickly, carrying a thermos. How are you? He stepped to the bedside, studying my face. You look pale. It's just low blood sugar. I'm fine. Just? He frowned, setting the thermos on the bedside table. I had someone at home make porridge. Have some while it's hot. He opened the container, ladled out a bowl, and handed it to me, so naturally, as if he'd done this countless times before. I took it and drank slowly. The porridge was soft, lightly savory, warm all the way down to my stomach. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? He sat beside the bed, looking at me. Anna, there's something I've been wanting to say for a long time. Emily immediately stood up. Right. I'll go grab some fruit. You two talk. And with that, she slipped out in a flash. The hospital room was left with just the two of us. The air suddenly felt different. Go ahead, I said, setting the bowl down. I know what you're worried about, Adrian said, looking at me with steady eyes. You're afraid of repeating the past. Afraid of getting hurt again. Afraid of giving everything and getting nothing in return. I understand all of that. But Anna, he continued, gently taking my hand, is palm warm, not everyone is Chad. And not every relationship ends in tragedy. At the very least, I won't let ours turn into that. How can you be so sure? I asked. I can't promise we'll never argue, never disagree. But I can promise I'll respect you, value you, talk things through with you, and stand beside you when things get hard. He paused, then added, Anna, I don't want to give you grand vows or dramatic promises. They're too easy to say. I just want you to know that I like you. I want to be with you. I want to build a good life with you, day by day. When you're tired, I'll be there to hold you up. When you're sad, I'll be there to lean on. When you're happy, I'll be right there laughing with you. We can grow your studio together. Maybe even start new projects side by side. We can stay in on weekends watching movies, or plan trips around the world. We can talk endlessly, or sit in silence and still feel at ease. Anna, he said softly, tightening his hold on my hand, give me a chance. And give yourself one too. Okay? I looked into his eyes. There was sincerity there. Hope. A kind of affection that didn't try to hide itself. No calculation. No obligation. No weight of guilt disguised as kindness. Just something simple. Clean. Earnest. Like morning sunlight, warm but never harsh. I stayed silent for a long time. So long that the light in his eyes began to dim, his grip loosening slightly. If you're not ready yet. I can wait, he said quietly. You don't have to wait, I cut in. He froze. I mean. I took a deep breath, gathering all my courage. Adrian, let's try. You and me. His eyes lit up instantly, like stars flaring to life. Really? I nodded. But let's be clear about one thing first. If someday you feel this isn't right, or I feel it isn't right, we say it honestly. No lies. No hiding. No letting things rot until all that's left is embarrassment and hurt like last time. I promise. Adrian's voice was firm. I mean it. He held out his hand, curling his little finger. Pinky swear? I laughed, then hooked my finger around his. Pinky swear. 100 years. No takebacks. Outside the window, the sunlight was perfect. A soft breeze brushed the treetops, carrying the first hint of spring. Emily peeked in from the doorway, arms full of fruit. Done talking? Can I come in now? Come in, I said, smiling and waving her over. Emily bounced in, glanced at me, then at Adrian, her eyes curving into bright crescents. So? It's official? It's official, Adrian admitted easily, reaching for my hand.
Yes!
Emily cheered. Congratulations. Adrian, I'm handing Anna over to you. If you ever treat her badly, I'll be the first one coming after you. No chance, Adrian laughed. If I ever hurt her, I won't even need you to step in. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. We all laughed. It was the kind of laughter I hadn't felt in a long time, genuine, unguarded, light. Later, Adrian told me that in the hospital that day, he'd been unbelievably nervous, his palms soaked with sweat. I was afraid you'd reject me, he said. And I was just as afraid you'd say yes out of gratitude or guilt. And now? I asked. Are you still afraid?
Yeah.
He nodded seriously. I'm afraid that one day you'll decide I'm not good enough and walk away. So I have to treat you even better, so well that you'd never want to leave. Smooth talker, I teased, though my heart felt like it had been dipped in honey. After getting together with Adrian, life didn't seem to change much, and yet, everything felt different. I was still busy with the studio, and he still had his own work to handle. But we made time for weekend dates, checked in with each other about our schedules, and said goodnight before going to sleep. He remembered my cycle and would prepare warm ginger tea ahead of time. When I stayed up late rushing orders, he'd quietly have food delivered to the studio. When I ran into difficult clients, he'd offer advice from a calm, outsider's perspective. There were no grand, dramatic gestures, just a steady, enduring kind of tenderness. So this was what a good relationship felt like. Not exhausting, not filled with guesswork, not weighed down by insecurity. Just two independent people drawn to each other, keeping each other company, growing into better versions of themselves. In the spring, Adrian and I took a trip to Japan to see the cherry blossoms. Along Kyoto's Philosopher's Path, the blossoms looked like clouds, like snow, drifting down in a soft pink rain. We walked hand in hand, talking now and then, but more often simply enjoying the quiet. Halfway through, a light drizzle began to fall. Adrian opened an umbrella and pulled me gently into his arms. "Are you cold?" he asked. "Not at all." I leaned against him, catching the faint, clean scent on his clothes. "Anna." "Thank you," he said. "For what?" I tilted my head to look at him. Rain gathered along the edge of the umbrella and fell in soft drops, darkening the stone path beneath us. "For giving me a chance," Adrian said softly, his voice as gentle as the rain. "And for giving yourself one too, for walking out of the past, and starting again." I smiled but didn't say anything, only tightened my hold around his arm. Beneath the cherry trees, wrapped in mist and drizzle, the whole world felt hazy and tender. In the distance, the deep toll of a temple bell echoed, again and again, settling into my chest like the quiet sound of something finally coming to rest. Chapter 12. After we returned from Japan, life seemed to slip into a new, steady rhythm. The studio's orders kept growing, and Emily and I hired 2 more assistants, which finally meant we didn't have to stay up working until midnight every day. Adrian was still busy with his job, but he made time for me whenever he could, even if it was just sharing a simple dinner or video calling late at night after we'd both finished work. He wasn't like Chad, who had always been good at grand gestures and dramatic romance. His kindness was steady, grounded, something that showed up in the details of everyday life. If I casually mentioned a book I wanted to read, he'd somehow have a copy for me the next time we met. If I got too busy and forgot to eat, he'd have a familiar restaurant deliver a meal he knew I'd like, right on time. And when I was overwhelmed by a demanding client, he wouldn't say, "Quit your job, I'll take care of you." Instead, he'd calmly walk me through the situation, weigh the pros and cons with me, and help me find the most practical solution. "What you need is a partner in the trenches, not someone who keeps you in a gilded cage," he told me once, his eyes warm with quiet amusement. "Anna, you've always been someone who shines on her own." That's exactly who I fell for. Life moved forward like a gentle stream. Every now and then, through bits and pieces from old friends, I'd still hear news about Chad. They said Ivy's pregnancy had stabilized and she'd given birth to a boy. The Carter family was thrilled. They said Chad's company had expanded into new ventures and business was going well. They also said his mother and Ivy didn't get along, and the house was often filled with tension. But all of it felt distant, like watching blurry shapes through frosted glass. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. I listened like a true outsider, and not a single ripple stirred in my chest. Until one bright afternoon, when I was trimming flowers in the studio and Emily burst in, breathless, her expression complicated. "Anna. Guess who I just ran into at the mall?" "Who?" I didn't look up, carefully stripping the thorns from a ranunculus stem. "Chad. And Ivy." Emily leaned in, lowering her voice. "They had the baby with them, shopping at a maternity store. You should have seen him. He looked worn out, juggling the kid like he didn't know what he was doing. Ivy didn't look great either. The two of them barely spoke." I snipped off an extra leaf. "That's it? That's your reaction?" Emily stared at me. "What kind of reaction are you expecting?" I looked up and smiled. Should I sigh and say, karma finally caught up with them? Or feel sorry and say, the marriage is hard? Emily choked on her words, then pouted. "I don't know. It feels strange. Back then it was all so intense, like they couldn't live without each other. And now? It just looks ordinary. Marriage is like drinking water. Only the person holding the cup knows whether it's warm or cold." I set down the scissors and arranged the trimmed flowers into a vase. "How they're doing is their business. I stopped caring a long time ago." Emily studied me for a moment, then suddenly pulled me into a hug. "This is good, Anna. You're really in a good place now." She was right. I hugged her back, my heart calm and clear. Chapter 13. In the fall, my studio was hired to design the floral arrangements for a charity gala. The event was hosted by a highly respected senior entrepreneur in the city, and the opportunity came through one of Adrian's family connections. On the day of the event, Emily and I arrived early with the team to oversee the final adjustments. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across the room, and the air carried the rich fragrance of lilies and tuberose. Everything looked perfect. Guests began to arrive, elegant and composed. I stepped into a quiet corner to take a short break and spotted Adrian across the room, accompanying the host as they greeted people. He was wearing a tailored dark gray suit, standing tall and composed, effortlessly noticeable in the crowd. As if sensing my gaze, he looked over from a distance, raised his champagne glass toward me, and smiled. I returned the smile, about to walk over, when I heard a hesitant voice behind me. Anna. My body tensed, almost imperceptibly. That voice was far too familiar. I turned around. It was Chad. He stood a few steps away, as if he had just arrived. Compared to the last time I saw him, he looked thinner. The fatigue in his eyes hadn't faded, though his clothes were still immaculate. But the confidence he used to carry so easily seemed dimmed. Ivy wasn't with him. Neither was the child. Mr. Carter. I gave a small nod, my tone polite and distant, the way one might greet a stranger seen only a few times. The formality seemed to sting him. His lips parted, then he forced out a strained smile. I didn't expect to run into you here. This venue. Did you design it? Yes. My studio took the project. I answered calmly, my gaze drifting past him. Mrs. Carter didn't come with you? Chad's expression dimmed further. He avoided my eyes and replied vaguely, she hasn't been feeling well. She's resting at home. I see. I had no intention of pressing. Excuse me, I have something to take care of. Anna. His voice came quickly, urgent. I stopped but didn't turn around. There was a brief silence behind me before I heard him again, his voice low, layered with emotions I couldn't quite untangle, almost pleading. Are you doing well? I finally turned to face him. There was curiosity in his eyes, guilt, and perhaps something else I couldn't quite name. It was strange. The man who had once left me shattered and sleepless now stood in front of me, and my heart was as still as a late autumn lake. I'm doing very well, I said, even offering him a faint smile. Better than ever. I spoke the words clearly, steadily, without resentment or pride. Just a statement of fact. Chad froze. Something in his eyes seemed to collapse entirely. He looked like he wanted to say more, his lips moving, but no sound came out. He just stood there, deflated, like a tree suddenly stripped of its roots. Chad. A warm male voice cut in. Adrian had come over at some point. He stepped naturally to my side, one arm resting lightly around my waist, the gesture intimate and protective. He nodded at Chad, his tone courteous but unmistakably distant. Mr. Carter. Long time no see. Chad's gaze dropped to the hand at my waist. His pupils tightened, his face paling instantly. He looked from Adrian to me, his eyes churning with shock, humiliation, and something like a belated, overwhelming loss. Anna is here with me tonight, and she's also the lead designer for the floral arrangements. Adrian smiled, his tone calm but firm. We'll excuse ourselves. The host is still waiting. Without giving Chad another glance, he guided me away, leaning slightly closer to murmur, the host wants to meet you. He said your design has real spirit. Okay. I followed his lead. As I turned, I caught a glimpse of Chad out of the corner of my eye. He was still standing there, motionless, his figure oddly small beneath the glittering lights, lonely and worn. But that loneliness no longer stirred anything in me. As we made our way across the room, Adrian's hand stayed steady at my waist, a quiet reassurance in the touch. I looked up at him and said softly, thank you. For what? He glanced down at me, light flickering in his eyes. For showing up when I needed you. It wasn't coincidence. His arm tightened slightly, his voice low and certain. I saw him walk toward you, so I came over. Warmth spread through my chest. I didn't say anything more. I simply placed my hand lightly over his where it rested at my waist. During the charity auction, Adrian bid on a landscape painting, unassuming at first glance, but quietly evocative. As the evening wound down, the host came over personally, patting Adrian on the shoulder before turning to me with a kindly smile. You've got a good eye, Adrian. Miss Miller's floral work carries real depth, just like her. Fresh, elegant, and never conventional. Very good. Truly very good. Coming from a man who had spent a lifetime reading people, that praise carried weight. Adrian and I exchanged a glance, both catching the same smile in each other's eyes. After seeing off the last of the guests and finishing cleanup, it was already late at night. Adrian drove me home. A cool breeze drifted through the open window, and soft classical music flowed quietly inside the car. Tired? He asked. A little, but I'm happy. I watched the neon lights slide past outside. Especially what the host said. He rarely compliments anyone, Adrian replied. Which means you really are that good. I turned to look at him. Adrian.
Yeah.
Have I ever told you, I said seriously, how lucky I feel to have met you? His hands paused slightly on the steering wheel, and then a gentle smile curved at the corner of his mouth. He didn't look at me, his eyes still on the road ahead, his voice clear in the quiet night. That's my line. Anna, being able to find you again is the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me. Outside the window, the city's lights streamed past, like the painful memories I had once carried, now fading farther and farther behind. Ahead, the night was soft, streetlights linking together into a warm ribbon of light, winding forward toward home, toward the future we would build together. I knew then that Anna's new life, after a long winter and a fragile, uncertain spring, had finally arrived, real, warm, and steady. The wounds I once thought I would never survive, the people I believed I could never forget, had all receded into the distance. And the future, clear and bright and full of possibility, was finally in my own hands. At this point, my love life is a public service announcement. Free of charge.